Me, hello. Commissioner Janowski,
Here.
Commissioner Lee,
Here.
Commissioner Singh, Commissioner Watkins,
Here.
Commissioner Weber,
Here.
and Commissioner Zuber.
Here. Thank you very much. All right, we have some minutes from February 5th. Would anyone like
Madam
to?
Chair, move approval of the minutes as signed.
Thank you. All right.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Watkins and support by Commissioner Lee. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, very good. Do we have anything to add or delete from the agenda?
No changes. One item I did want to mention is that for this agenda, for the general public comment, we moved earlier in the agenda. And this is something I forgot to email out last week. And the reason we had recommended putting it earlier on the agenda was at a previous meeting, we had had some substantial public comments at the end of the meeting about some drainage that were unrelated to anything on the agenda. But I think that was kind of a long meeting. So if there were any items that were similar where it wasn't necessarily related to something on the agenda, just a general comment someone had, they could get that early in the meeting and not have to stay for the rest of the meeting if there was nothing on the agenda.
Thank you for pointing that out. I hadn't even noticed that, so thank you. Very good. So do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Lee to accept the agenda for tonight. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, excellent. So, communications. Patrick, anything to report?
Nothing new.
Okay, excellent. Public comment. We have a session here where we can accept comments from the public. All right, Mr. McCausland, you have 3 minutes.
And before we start, just to note, there's a public hearing this evening for a text amendment for fences, walls, and borders. So that'll be outside the regular public comment. So there'll be a separate time to comment on that particular
Sure.
item.
Okay, very good. So if you're commenting on fences, you can.
Well, I
you can
guess,
hold
real quick, does that mean the new format, will we not be able to comment on agenda items? Or,
No, that's what you're here to comment on, is agenda items.
so now it's going to be, the comment's going to be for the agenda items now?
I think it's for whatever you want to comment on.
Right. but
We're
I'm
just
saying, so
combining
like-
them, is my understanding.
So like item 3, master plan, instead of talking during the master plan, we're going to talk now, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Dan McCausland, 2011 Lots Road. Did have a chance to go to the master plan open house. Thanks to Aaron, thanks to everybody who participated in the master plan workshops, attended pretty much most all of them. I did notice a few things that I think we need to be a little bit aware of. I see that we're kind of changing some zoning in the master plan, coming out of the workshops, hearings, whatever. I would like to be sure that the zonings that are being changed, that there would be a due process hearing before they're just approved by any bodies or commission. So i.e., I see like, the hearing we had before you last month for C4 highway interchange, that zoning's going away. That's not listed anymore. It's now replaced or superseded by general commercial. So I think there should be some type of process to be able to look at why are we doing that and what's the advantage or disadvantage of doing that. And before that's just arbitrarily implemented into a new zoning code, to have some type of process hearing. And I would say that would be more than fair than equitable to do that. And, so far we've been doing well. It doesn't look like we've been rushing into anything, so I don't think there's any place to rush into it now. And again, thanks for all the hard work, and looking forward to, having a new master plan that will serve us all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. McCausland, just because it shows in the master plan doesn't mean it's going to change. I mean, that's a guideline for the future. If any actual change of zoning happens, there is a process to go through. I mean, just like
That's what I'm confused about.
Just like an ordinance change. I mean, it essentially is an ordinance change. There'll be a hearing before us, public hearing, in fact, where people affected will get notice. It'll go to the township board. So it's not done arbitrarily or or without notice to anybody, and people
But-
will have opportunity to comment on it.
But will the actual heading of that go away and be superseded by yet another heading? So like if C4 interchange highway service is being replaced by general commercial, are we not going to recognize C4 highway interchange service anymore?
Let's let Aaron respond to that if you
Yeah.
don't mind.
So I just want to be clear, what we were showcasing at the open house was the future land use map and not the zoning map. So those are very, very different maps. The zoning map is not being changed currently as part of the master plan update. What we're doing is looking at the general classifications of general uses for those areas, general commercial, residential, that type of thing. And then we'll look at making zoning changes at a later date. So any zoning change will follow the normal due process of a rezoning or a zoning map amendment as per usual. This is just the future land use map. So these are very different maps. I
Right,
just want to
but
make that
I
clear.
think it all starts at the future land use map, because if we start getting a narrative that we're not going to recognize that zoning anymore, that's the beginning of a process that I think we should be able to have some type of input on.
Right, and that's why we had the open houses. That's why we're going to have, through the adoption of the master plan, once the Planning Commission, Township Board have distributed the draft master plan to the public for 63 days as per the state law, the public will have the opportunity to look at those as well. And then any future zoning amendments will be done in due course.
But just clarify that for me, because where I saw general commercial, where we were C4 highway interchange, that's the future land use map dictating that?
That's the future land use map is general commercial, so that's separate from the C4 zoning district that you're talking about. If you like, we can talk about that,
Yeah.
and I can
But-
go through it in more detail at a later date.
But again, that doesn't mean that's what's gonna happen. I mean, just for example, when we went through the rezoning a couple years ago, the property up on Warren, I forget the name of the people up there. If we would have stuck with what the future land use map, we would have rezoned that property, but we didn't rezone it.
Okay.
So just because it says that on the future land use map, it doesn't mean that it's definitely going to happen. A lot of it, it's again, it's a guideline.
Right.
It allows the planning commission and the administration to see how trends are going and that sort of thing.
Understood.
So that doesn't mean it's etched in stone.
Just trying to, I'm always an advocate of everybody's rights and don't like to see the process move quick with nobody really knowing how the process is moving.
Trust
So
me,
I appreciate,
no one's stepping on anybody's
no, I
rights here.
appreciate you for saying that. That's,
No, it's not moving quickly, believe me.
no, that's
Trust
fine,
me.
really. It's been, it's been a fine process.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
heard a lot from the community. I've never seen it done this way, and I've been here 44 years. So I think it was great.
Good.
So, it's open and transparent, and what I'm saying is we should continue that process, not rush it through, not race it through of any way. And if anybody has questions, we keep working at the process. It's a process. And I appreciate those comments that, we're all here to make the community better.
Yep.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your hard work.
You. Anyone else? All right.
Don't you
very
move to
good.
close public comment?
We didn't open it, actually. Do we need
Oh,
to
gosh, I
open
thought I'm thinking we're in a public
That's,
hearing. Oh, my God.
that's next.
Got it. All right.
it? That's okay. Okay, very good. So we're going to move into the public hearing section, and we are going to talk about zoning ordinance text amendment regarding fences, walls, and borders. Patrick.
Can I be excused? Oh, sorry.
No. Patrick, please tell us more.
Thank you. So we've looked at the fences, walls, and border text quite a bit over the last year and a half or so, and we've gotten to a point where we have it just about in final form. And at the Planning Commission meeting on January 8th, the Planning Commission scheduled a public hearing for the proposed ordinance amendments. Since that meeting, we've made a few changes to the text that are called out in our staff report on page 2. They're summarized in 4 different areas. The first is that we've added some cross-references to Article 3 of the zoning ordinance for nonconformities.
Excuse, you said, what page is it in the?
Oh, on the, of our staff report, it's page 2. In the
It's
packet,
page
it's page 15.
15, thank you, thank you.
So this first item of adding cross-references, it doesn't change the text at all. The second item is in section 2.20D11, we expanded on the requirement for written notarized consent from an adjacent property. Right now, the draft ordinance previously stated that if there are grade changes near an adjacent lot line, that notarized consent is required from the neighbor. We've changed that to grade changes near an adjacent lot in a manner that will impact drainage and soil erosion on the adjacent lot. So that's something that will allow township staff to evaluate in more detail and make that determination, because near an adjacent lot is kind of subjective, but if it relates to soil erosion and drainage, it's something that our building and engineering division can look at and determine on a case-by-case basis, depending on the lot. The third change that we propose is in the RA Rural Agricultural District. Right now, fences are allowed in the front yard setbacks. And what we recommend is that that standard remain, but that if the principal use of an RA zone property is single-family residential, then it must comply with another subsection that does not permit fences in the required front yard setback area. In that case, someone could still do a fence in a front yard, but if there's a single-family home in an RA zone district, we don't necessarily want, say, a 6-foot-high fence right along the front lot line barricading the property. So we recommend for single-family residential properties in the RA zone that those fences comply with the front yard setbacks. For any non-single-family residential property like agricultural property, the standards would not change. And then finally, the fourth item, and probably the most significant, is that for the corner lot fences, and we've been through those standards in quite a bit of detail, for now, we recommend limiting those corner lot fences allowed in the front yards only for lots and subdivisions and condominiums for a couple of reasons. The first is subdivisions and site condominiums are where the majority of those variance requests come from, and they're a little bit easier to deal with than larger meets and bounds lots that are located outside of subdivisions and condominiums. Also, we recommend limiting the front yard setback fence locations only to those corner lots and cul-de-sac lots where the rear lot line does not abut a road easement or right-of-way. And that was looking at some lots in the community where the rear lot of a corner property is actually abutting a major right-of-way. It's a pretty rare condition, but something that does occur where we might not want to allow as many fences in front yards on lots like that. So what we recommend doing is limiting the corner lot front yard setback location allowance for subdivision and condominium lots, and only for lots where that rear yard doesn't abut a right-of-way or a road easement. This way, this will give us time to evaluate how applications come in and if there are any variance requests from other areas of the zoning ordinance that we can bring at this time. But we've evaluated probably hundreds of different corner lots in the community, and there's a wide range of different conditions. But the ones that are the most easy to write rules for are ones that are in subdivisions and condominiums and where that rear lot line doesn't abut a road right-of-way, just because it's easier to manage the intent of the ordinance rather than having some unintended consequences for some of those other lots. So that's why we propose that change. And what we want to do is, as time goes on, continue to study that. If there are variance requests, we want to know if there's maybe a design practice that could be incorporated in the ordinance in the future that's a little bit more tailored to those conditions, or whether we want to just evaluate them as variances on a case-by-case basis depending on how time goes. So this is a little bit more of a scaled-back version of what we'd previously worked on, but something that we want to have implemented on a limited type of basis and then continue to study it as time goes on to see if a future amendment is warranted. So that concludes our staff report. We've modified the ordinance based on our staff recommendations, and our recommendation is approval. If the ordinance is recommended for approval, it will proceed to the Board of Trustees for 2 readings before action on whether to adopt the ordinance. So that concludes our staff comments, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. I have a question about the diagrams at the end of that report, where you have the corner lot fence adjacent to major thoroughfare, and then figure 2, the corner lot fence adjacent to thoroughfare with a planned right-of-way of less than 100 feet. If I'm reading this legend right, it's showing that a 6-foot fence is permitted in the front yard or right next to the house, which I didn't think we were talking about that.
That's correct. That was a late catch by us after the packet went out, and
Oh.
something I forgot to mention, where the blue and the red is indicated on both figures, that's flipped.
Oh, it's flipped. Okay.
The blue
Thank
should
you.
be 4 foot, the red should be 6 foot.
I don't remember talking about taller fences at the front of the property and then shorter ones at the back. So thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have a couple of handwritten notes, nothing substantial, but
I
a couple
saw
of
that.
handwritten notes on some of these where we'll have another modification. And something we may continue to look at in terms of maybe getting more text on some of these graphics just to make them more clear, or perhaps adding another graphic if we need to, just to call out something different if it gets too cluttered. But that would be more administrative to not change the text, but to implement the text.
Okay. Great. Anybody else have any questions or thoughts?
We have to open the public hearing.
Oh, we do. Yes. Could you open the public hearing, please?
I move to open the public hearing.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Watkins to open the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Public hearing is open. Did you have a question, Alan?
Yeah, so anyone that applies for a fence permit, a survey is going to be required now? Is that right?
That's correct. We've spoken with our building division inspectors who review fence permits and inspect fences about that requirement. And that requirement, there'll be some administrative interpretation in terms of how that's handled. And the example that we've discussed is if someone is in a subdivision or a condominium, more likely than not, they have a survey that has the irons on the survey, that when they have the as-built plan or the grading plan, they're gonna have the survey on file with the township. Not always, but in many cases they will, where somebody could take that survey and create a fence plan off of it. And the fence company may just need to locate the irons and maybe tie a string between the irons to make sure that they're staying on the property. So where a survey does exist, they could use that survey to base their fence plan on, and then our fence inspectors in the building division can determine whether that's adequate or if they need the corners marked or the iron shown, or a surveyor to go out there to mark the corners depending on what the circumstance is.
Okay. So what I'm worried about, so a signed and sealed survey is not always required, is what you're saying. It's going to be under your discretion, is that right?
Yeah, the building inspectors who review that requirement, they'll have to have a comfort level in terms of what they're approving. So
Okay.
in the case of someone having a survey with if they live in a subdivision or a condominium, which most of our lots are in, either the owner will have a survey or will have a survey on file in either engineering or building, and then they could use that to do the fence plan, unless there was something that was confusing or not clear on that, and we needed something more from a surveyor to show and affirm that the fence would be on the applicant's lot.
Right.
Where it might be more difficult is maybe a meets and bounds lot where it's the lot line might not have corner irons, and it might be more difficult to locate the lot line. In cases like that, then we would just have to make a determination whether they would need a full boundary survey or if they would just need to survey that part of the lot to put stakes there to ensure that the fence is going to be on that side. So that's something when we spoke to our inspectors that we would monitor as time goes on to see if we need to be more specific in the ordinance, or if administratively they're able to work within that without needing a text amendment, and be able to work with homeowners to do that.
Okay. I was just worried about the situation where, let's say, an owner is disputing with his neighbor about where his property line is. Well, a registered surveyor could determine that with a drawing and back it up, whereas an owner could really fudge something, put it to you guys, and you would end up approving it if no one looked at it closely, and you approve something that's not legitimate, you know. So if the building department's looking at it and someone's, has eyes on it, then, you know, I guess that's a safeguard. But if a survey is required and a surveyor's involved, it should be signed and sealed, to make it more legitimate, you know.
Right, so you probably mean not a mortgage survey.
Yeah. They're notoriously inaccurate.
You realize if you get into the situation of getting actual survey and one discovers that the fence is like off 5 feet here.
That's right.
It goes right down the line then, and just,
And-
I've just seen that can of worms open before, and it's not fun to deal with, so.
And-
But it is what it is, so.
The owner is going to say, Canton Township approved it. You reviewed it and approved it. If I'm the other property owner, I'm going to say, now I got to hire somebody to contest that, and it wasn't even signed and sealed by a surveyor. So a registered surveyor is likely going to get it right with his credentials. And you could avoid a dispute like that is I guess what I'm saying.
Okay. We could include language there, verified on a survey. Do we want to say prepared by a licensed surveyor?
Well, wait a minute, though. I mean, I think for coming in initially, if the building department is okay with it and they're reasonably assured of it, I think that's fine. I think it's if they dig deeper and they find something, then maybe you got to involve a surveyor. I would hate to see someone having to come in for a fence permit, have
Agreed.
to go to the expense of hiring a surveyor to do a full-blown survey or whatever. A fence permit costs, I don't know what for a fence permit costs, I forget, but the expense of that is minuscule compared to what it costs to pay a surveyor, so I would reserve, I like the building department having the discretion to be able to
Agreed.
say.
Also, surveyors are slammed. I mean, they'll put you off. Residential surveys are put off, and there's not a lot of people that do them, so I'd hate to have a homeowner get delayed because of that. So I like what Doug is saying. If it's under the building department's discretion, if they require a professional survey, it has to be signed and sealed once they look into it, but it should be under their discretion.
Okay.
Yep.
We can leave it as is, and then
Yep.
as time goes on, if we need to amend it, but we could have some administrative rules for this.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody's got questions or concerns? Anybody from the public want to say anything? No?
I move to close the public hearing.
All right. All right. Once again, we have Commissioner Watkins making a motion and Commissioner Weber making a motion, Commissioner Watkins seconding it. So any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Very good. So, anybody got anything, or you want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I move to recommend approval of the amendment of the zoning ordinance to amend section 1.03 and section 2.20, and approval of the amendment of the Code of Ordinance to amend Chapter 78, Article V, as stated in the attached ordinance proposal, subject to modification to propose graphics in accordance with texts.
Support.
Very good. So we have a motion by Commissioner Janowski and support by Commissioner Foster. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Don't we need a roll call vote for that?
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Foster, could you please call the vote?
Sure. Commissioner Cruz.
Yes.
Commissioner Foster, yes. Commissioner Janowski.
Yes.
Commissioner Lee.
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
And Commissioner Zuber.
Yes. Thank you for catching me.
No worries.
All right, very good. Patrick, anything else we need to know about that? Next steps, it's going to the Township Board?
Correct. It'll go to the Board of Trustees, and if there are any items that where additional information is needed, or if there's anything that is remanded for further study or change, we'll let the Planning Commission know.
Sounds great. Thank you. All right, then we have item number 1 under new business, Cherry Hill Ridge parking lot. We're considering a site plan for said parcels at 50523 Independence Street. The property is located on the south side of Cherry Hill Road between South Ridge Road and Denton Road. Proposed use is expansion of Canton Township's parking lot. Patrick, tell us more, please.
Sure, thank you. This project is a township-sponsored project, and last year, the township purchased the property at 50525 Cherry Hill Road, which is on the site that's on the screen here, and it's the western portion of the site. And on the screen, I'll zoom in a little bit, there's an old garage building that's on this site that has since been demolished. And so in the southern area of the site, that's owned by Canton Township, and the eastern end of the site owned by Canton Township. And it's this parcel in the middle here that I'm outlining that was acquired by Canton Township in 2023. And since then, Canton has demolished the building with the intent of combining it with the township's adjacent parcels and repurposing the property in a way that fulfills the township's objectives in its town square planning, which has been ongoing and is in the process of being implemented. And it's been pretty well publicized as well. So we have a lot of information on our website about the town square project. And so in fulfilling the objectives of that project, Canton is on its way to doing actual construction. There are a number of different projects that are ongoing that are in the different planning and development stages. And many of the projects will be coming before the Planning Commission for review and approval before they're implemented. This is a requirement of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, which requires planning commissions to review and act on site plans for new buildings and structures on municipal property. So this is why this is coming to the Planning Commission this evening. Specifically, this project is to combine the adjacent parking lots and to expand those by constructing a parking lot on the south side of the subject site. So what I'll do is I'll scroll over to the parking lot plans themselves, and we can take a look to see the major changes that are being proposed. So what's outlined here in white and not shaded is what's existing. So starting here in the far west side of the site, the township proposes to connect the driveway to the parcel to the west, which is Indigo Salon. Now this plan, it's a proposed plan, so there are details still to be worked out. The project, I don't believe, has started the bidding process yet, but part of this process will be any kind of easement acquisition in cooperation with adjacent property owners. So efforts to that end are still ongoing, but what this would do would be to connect to the parking lot to the west and have a little bit more direct access, a little bit more shared parking, because the lot would be proposed as a public parking lot. Additionally, here on the south end, there's a connection proposed to the township's existing parking lot to include another point of access. And then finally, in the southeast corner, there's a point of access into the existing drive. So what this would do is it would create additional points of access, options for drivers. So if one area, the parking lot's full, a driver could circle around the parking lot. There's options for moving around without having to back up or get stuck. So it's going to allow a lot of different options for visitors to Cherry Hill Village and address some of the concerns and comments that we've received along the way about parking shortages within the village, specifically in the village core. The parking lots will also serve a future development on the north side of the site. At this time, the north side of the site is proposed to remain vacant. There are no imminent plans to develop the north side of the site, but in the future, this is something that the township would like to solicit for a future developer to do a commercial or mixed-use building, something close to the road, something that is consistent with the character of downtown Cherry Hill Village. So this would essentially prime that area for future development by incorporating public parking behind the building, on-street parking in front of the building. The stormwater management is accommodated in the existing system and has received approval from Wayne County. So this would help with any future development proposal for the north side of the site. But again, nothing is imminent. This could be a while until something happens at that area, but if something does, that will come before the Planning Commission for review. At this time, we wanted to start the process of getting the public parking in place. So about the parking lot itself, the parking lot will add more spaces to the existing lot, and it'll pick up several net spaces into the downtown. Sheet 6 of the plans demonstrate that the 80 proposed parking spaces would be sufficient for the site if it was developed fully as a restaurant. Restaurants tend to generate a lot of parking. Odds are it would probably not be a single-use building like a restaurant. It would probably be something of a mixed use where there's different peak demands over time. But at the time a development's proposed, we can evaluate the available parking not only on the site, but publicly available parking within Cherry Hill Village. Like many downtown areas, this parking lot would function as people who park and go off-site, as well as people who park and visit on-site. And likewise, there will be off-site parking areas where future visitors to this site will park. Just a matter of their destination and the places they go along the way. The last couple items we want to note are about lighting and landscaping. The lighting plan includes existing and proposed light poles. They're the 10-foot Amerlux light poles that are used throughout Cherry Hill Village. And there are some areas where the lighting is below 0.3-foot candles. And in a recent update from our engineer, it's going to be very difficult to achieve 0.3-foot candles throughout the entire site just based on the functionality of those poles. So that's something that we would like to review internally to see if there's a more appropriate fixture, not just for this site, but perhaps in the future for Cherry Hill Village, so that when we're building public parking lots and building out these amenities, we want to make sure that they're safely lit and adequately lit. That may require us going to a different type of fixture that's more functional and more safe for the area, so that people can have a little bit more comfort from where they park and where their destination is and having continuous lighting. So that's something we're going to continue to work on administratively, but something that we want to ultimately achieve the minimum lighting required by the zoning ordinance. Finally, with the landscaping, there's a landscape area and 16 trees proposed. There are 7 trees that are required by the ordinance. So there's a surplus of 9 trees. There will be some tree removal, and based on the early indications from a tree survey, the number of trees proposed will exceed the number that would be required to be replanted under our tree preservation ordinance. So we're going to have a net increase in the number of trees on the site. So staff's recommendation for the proposed parking lot is approval. And before we conclude, I just want to note that here this evening to present the project and answer any questions are Jeanette Aiello, Canton Township's Project and Operations Supervisor, Claire Martin, our engineering consultant from OHM, and John Lefevre, our Community Development Director. So that concludes our staff report, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Excellent, thank you. All right, tell us more.
Thank you, commissioners, for joining us. We had said last time when we got together with Community Development and Leisure Services that we'd have a lot of things coming on board in the next few months, and this is just the jump start for the whole year. You'll see a lot of us in the next few months because there's a lot of great action happening down in the village. And Patrick eloquently described how the parking lot's going to be laid out. We know that parking's a huge need for people that visit the village. It's also a huge need for the residents that live down there because they don't want everybody parking in their neighborhood. So this is what we want to start with because we want to make sure that there's ample parking for anyone that's visiting the existing businesses or the theater or the amenities that are down there, as well as knowing in the future that when we develop the town square, that we will need to have parking in other locations that people can easily access. Currently, we're working on putting a temporary parking lot over the garage parcel area just to accommodate all the amazing programs and events that are happening at the theater and some of those venues down there during the springtime. But our plans are, if this gets approved, that we would bid this out fairly soon so that we can get that parking lot really formalized and put in place so that both the neighbors that live down there and the people visiting have that parking, and they know that it's going to be there no matter what development takes place throughout the village. So with us, we have Claire Martin from OHM Advisors. She can answer any specifics related to the project, and you'll see a little bit more of her in the next couple planning commission meetings as well when we bring a few other things on board.
Excellent. Thank you. Anything to add, Claire?
I'm just here to answer any questions in regards to the engineering efforts. I would point out too that we investigated the drainage on the site, so you'll see some of those items at the southern end of the project, so we're accommodating some of the drainage that's coming from the Indigo Spa property. We also have an excess of ADA parking that is typically required for this site. I think we wanted to make sure that that would function for public parking in general and not necessarily just, fitting the minimum for this site. So I think those would be the only two things to add on top of what Dave said.
Thank you. Okay.
I just wanted to know, this is a good project for that area, for sure, because I've gone to the theater. I said, oh, I don't know if I can park here, because you got a lot of resident parking there. Are you is it wayfinding I'm trying to say? Have you thought about how am I going to drive down Cherry Hill and know that there's a public parking space, which I would love to know about, that's close?
Yeah, so we do have a proposed signage plan on here. It's just the general typical public parking P signs, but we've got them from both directions, directing people into those lots, especially because they're coming in from, two access points that aren't the main road, aren't Cherry Hill. We wanted to make sure that people would see those signs from Cherry Hill.
One other, is this free parking or metered? Free parking. Oh, definitely. You want to get them there.
So all Canton's public parking spaces are free. We don't have any intention to meter any of them anytime soon that I am aware of. And there's a greater wayfinding plan that will be developed as more of these amenities come on board through Cherry Hill Village. We know that there is parking, but not very many people know where it's at unless they have the map on their phone when they're driving down the road, which they shouldn't have in the first place. But so we know that
long as it's
wayfinding is
not
a
in their
really
hands.
important thing. And that'll be as we develop, especially when we start developing the square right around the Cherry Hill School, that there'll be more signage that goes throughout the village that we will make sure that we bring before the commission. It's actually part of our proposal with Wayne County was that we put an ample amount of wayfinding signage throughout the village and throughout the area, leading people into that area.
Can I ask a question, Manager?
Of course.
Maybe I'm
My permission.
trying to be professional, unlike I am usually. Maybe I missed it, but the southern access on the eastern part of the parking lot, it looks like it's going out to this private road. Is that meant to be public? Is that going to be public access for everybody to this parking in and out?
We do have a proposed access easement over the top of that driveway. Currently, the township-owned parcels, the existing parking, that's how you would access them, either through that driveway or the Indigo Spa property. So we're just, overlaying the proposed access easements over the way that they currently have to access them now.
So don't you have to negotiate with whoever owns this property to get that easement?
Yes, we have communicated with the adjacent property owners previously, and they've been eager about seeing this Cherry Hill Village development. We still have to finalize the easements with the adjacent property owners before we can move forward with the
Are
project.
they going to be okay with cars coming up and down behind their driveways here? Because they have none now, so just,
No, they do. There's some, that's how you access the existing parking.
this driveway?
Yeah, there's a driveway right there that,
If you look at this, it's how this
Individuals
parking
are currently
is already
using.
accessed.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it doesn't
that-
go any, but it doesn't really go, I mean, it comes out here, but
It goes down to the teardrop right now.
Yeah.
yeah, but I guess my point is there's gonna be more cars once they're, and I hope they're aware of that.
Yeah, certainly, we would make sure that they're apprised of all of that before we go enter into any easement agreements.
They probably are in favor of the additional parking as well.
Yeah, they probably
Yeah.
are, but I just saying, I know once cars start going up and down the road, then voices change. So,
And there's
especially-
another,
Especially if there's kids around.
And there's another major part, it's not necessarily part of this plan exactly, but this drive on the east side of Indigo Salon, it's fairly narrow. I think it's maybe 15 or 16 feet. It only allows really one-way access.
Right.
And what we propose in the future on the plan is for the township to have an easement of its own on the west side of the property to allow for the potential for this drive to be widened in the future. So the township shows a willingness on this plan to grant an easement. And if that's the case, if that easement takes place and that's widened, we'll see a lot more of that traffic come directly from Cherry Hill and not necessarily from that adjacent neighborhood.
Be a lot easier to find too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So who's that easement coming from, Patrick, along there to make that separate access wider?
This would be from the township. The edge of the current driveway is near the property line, so this additional easement would come from the township to allow cross-access.
Just my input in the whole thing while you're doing the parking lot itself, because there's some cost involved with scale. And I'm wondering why we wouldn't just go ahead and implement that at the same time, because you're gonna spend so much money doing the parking lot to come back and do that little one, unless you guys got it broken down separate. But the cost would be minimized by putting it all, grouping it in one thing, in one segment.
Yeah, and that one, when we had gone to, Wayne County has approved the plans as they're presented. So if we were to add that, it would be additional Wayne County review, which we can do. It was just not part of the original phase, but
So-
something we
okay,
plan to
so
do.
Wayne County's approving the road, okay.
Yeah, so it's widening in the Cherry Hill right-of-way. We would have to go back to Wayne County for permitting, but something that is illustrated that we would intend to do. I don't know if we'd necessarily do it with this phase, but something that would be a big part of the access management.
But it's a timing thing. You guys want to get this going, so hence, that's why the timing to go to Wayne County and get that other stuff approved would take too long,
Perhaps.
instead of batching together. Okay. Yeah, because if you do a smaller project, all I'm saying is that cost, once you get that all bid out together, and the cost of the people coming through and doing that additional work will be minimal compared if you had to bring them out separate for a smaller thing, or with another project down the road.
And that might also depend on the future developer of this area, whether it's something that would tie into that development, or if the time to widen it would be at that point.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you zoom into the ADA spaces real quick? So those north bays, those right there, it seems like there should be a walk at least from that striped area all the way east connecting to that existing walk. And the reason why is if somebody's in a wheelchair or an electric cart, they don't have to wheel to the east to get to the ramp. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's certainly an option that we can do. I think
Yeah.
we kept it the way that it was to minimize the impact to the north side of the site.
Sure.
You know, we just picked a
So I
stopping
think just
point.
a little ramp
but-
there and
but
then
if
an
you
east
could-
walk.
Yeah, we could add, you know, whatever that is, 20, 30 feet of
Yeah,
sidewalk.
I think it's
pretty
better for a
minimal cost.
wheelchair. That way they don't have to go into, somebody could be backing out, and they're not in conflict with them.
Yeah, and
that,
that's
the
a
plan
pretty
looks
easy
good.
change to make.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything?
I'll just make a comment. I'm usually not in favor of adding more parking. But this is desperately needed. If you've ever gone to like the Village Arts Factory when there's a big event, or the Village Theater when there's a big event, There is definitely not enough parking in that part of our community. And as we look to expand programming there and build the town square, this is something that's desperately needed if we want to attract people.
Understood. Agreed. Sorry, there's no public hearing right now. Sorry. Anybody else from the commission?
Okay, so.
Like, I agree with Commissioner Sommer. You're definitely right. How is the community? Can you like give me an idea, or do you know? Are they supporting additional parking? I mean, you got a big plan for the area, so it's much bigger than this. And I've seen the big plan, but is the community accepting, as
So
you know?
that's a fabulous question. So when we first started this project, the plan had a parking structure in it.
Yes, I remember.
And the neighbors wanted parking, so we gave them a parking structure, and that was not well received. They did not want to see that from their homes or their residents. And so since we've kind of told them they're not getting a parking structure, but they're getting a parking lot, anybody that we've talked to thus far that lives down there has been much more well received from it. We've talked to the HOA that's right adjacent to the property, and that's been well received. And sometimes those condos that are in there, a lot of the residents there also need additional parking, so they've kind of overflowed to those areas. So having any additional spaces for when they have company or have people visit would probably be very welcome to that. But yeah, ever since we switched from being a parking structure to parking lots, it's gone over very well.
I can't remember if there's any time limitations on how long you can park in this parking lot now, and if there isn't, is there plans to put on it so that people aren't parking there as like their regular parking, as if they live in those condos, for example, and that sort of thing? Can't remember seeing that or not.
I don't know what the time duration is. I think we may have a general ordinance on that in terms of generally how long a car can be parked without moving. So I don't know what that is, but we probably have a general ordinance that applies to any public parking lot.
Cool.
Anybody else? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll do it.
Okay.
I move to approve the site plan for Cherry Hill and Ridge South parking lot at 50525 Cherry Hill Road and 50523 Independence Street, parcel 074-99-0002-702 and 074-99-0002-703, respectively, subject to all state, county, and township requirements, including the lighting requirements of Section 2.13 of the zoning ordinance and the landscaping requirements of Article 5 of the zoning ordinance.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Weber and support by Commissioner Lee. Any further discussion? All right, Commissioner Foster, could you call the vote, please?
Sure, Commissioner Foster, yes. Commissioner
Yes.
Commissioner Lee.
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
And Commissioner Zuber.
Yes. All right, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll see you next month.
Okay, we look forward to it. All right, so next steps, you're gonna move forward with bidding and permitting.
That's correct.
All right, very good. Thank you. So, item number 3, we have 2 1s and a 3 on our agenda, I just noticed. Item number 3 is the master plan. So, Aaron, I assume that's you. Are you gonna make this fun?
They're always fun.
Okay.
They're always fun and exciting.
All right, very good. Tell us more.
No, I just wanted to give an update on the open house. We had the second open house for the master plan last Thursday. It took place right here in this room. It was from 2 to 7. We didn't have the line out the doors we did in the previous one, but we had a lot of interest and a lot of attendees. We had over 71 people sign in on the call-in sheet or sign-in sheet, but I know a lot of people didn't do that, so I'd say we had anywhere between 75 and 100 people again. So in total, between the two, we had anywhere between 150 and 200 people come to the open house and give us their thoughts. A lot of the responses are still being tabulated and analyzed, and so we'll have a summary report to the Planning Commission either later this week or early next week. So it was a lot of good feedback. We had a lot of really great conversations, some with people who had been following the process and the project and really interested and wanted to participate throughout the whole project, and others who hadn't participated in anything, had never been to an open house before, and really didn't know what a master plan was. So it was a really good opportunity to speak with some of the members of the public and let them know how this project will impact their lives. So it was really good, and it was a lot of fun.
Good. Good.
I was not able to make either session. I had to go to Grand Rapids for work for the first one, and then I was out of town for the second one, but I did hear a lot of great feedback. And the people that I've talked to were really impressed with the openness and being brought into the process. And I think this was a first for Canton Township in doing something like this. So it was really great to hear the positive feedback and people's interest in a master plan, because I guess most people would not even know that a master plan even exists. So congratulations to you and your teams for great work.
Thank you. Thank you for telling us that. We also, I neglected to mention, because I know that there were a lot of people that weren't able to attend for any number of reasons, we do have all of the display materials available on the township website on our master plan page, and those will be up until March 17th. So for 2 weeks, people have the opportunity to look at them, and then they still have an opportunity to pass on their comments through email, or they can contact me directly on the phone or come talk to me. So we're still having that method of communication open for the next 2 weeks.
Great.
So please continue to tell your neighbors, friends, anyone who wasn't able to attend. And certainly if you have anything you want to look at, you all have seen the displays already, but if there's anything you want to look at in more depth, they're there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. That is the end of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Support.
Oh, everyone
Oh, that was
supported that. Okay. We had a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Watkins and support by Commissioner Weber. The W's dominate tonight.
Is this a record?
All in favor, say aye.
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 That was a very resounding aye.
It was an aye.